Ahead of the Africa Social Impact Summit, which aims to accelerate the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals through impact investment in critical areas of the economy. Sterling One Foundation, in collaboration with the United Nations, has put together a press briefing on the need to discuss practical solutions to the continent's challenges. While speaking at the conference, the managing director of Sterling Bank, Abubakar Suleiman, explained that it's important to bring together key players in the societal development sector and having conversations on how to address these problems, bedeviling Africa, amongst which certainly are climate action, circular economies, health, education, amongst others.
There is an opportunity to engage Africa in an organized way. If your interest, if you want to have impact, let's stop coming at this from different points of view without collaboration, without data. Let's do it together. I suspect that once we've had this particular summit going forward, it would be difficult for anyone to want to come into Africa to do anything in the field of impact without coming through the summit as a way to meet the right partners, to assess the right information, to assess the research, and effectively to get, for every dollar that they want to commit to Africa, to get $10 worth of value. That is what success looks like for us.
There's a lot of work to be done when it comes to development indices in our country and on our continent. And these numbers are worsening. As a matter of fact, we've not even scratched the surface.
In Nigeria last year, floods, the worst in 10 years, drought and heat are also intensifying strife, hurting livelihoods and constraining resources for Nigerians. So it seems clear to us as UN that unless we do take urgent action, the 2030 agenda will become no more than a broken promise to the world's most vulnerable people. And that's where our interest in this comes from. We truly believe this is an important piece in the road to recovery for all the reasons you've also mentioned.
Joining us now to discuss the event at the summit is a United Nations resident and humanitarian coordinator, Matthias Schmale. Good to have you on the show with us. But before we delve into the summit, since you've been working with the UN in Africa, what would you regard as the key developmental challenges in countries like Nigeria and the continent in general?
Good afternoon, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about, as per your questions, key challenges we see as UN for this continent, including Nigeria. Look, there are, of course, differences between countries. For us, Nigeria is a country that can feed itself, that has enormous potential. So one key challenge for Nigeria is to unleash that potential. There is a lot of entrepreneurial spirit out here. There are resources, natural resources. This country does not need to depend on foreign aid. So that's one bit. One challenge we see, but one challenge that can be overcome. Of course, there are global shocks that make it more challenging and more difficult for countries like Nigeria. I don't need to mention the war in Ukraine. That is self-evident. That has knock-on effects, for example, on global food prices, and that has knock-on effects on Nigeria. So it is a combination of internal and external challenges, but allow me to repeat that a country like Nigeria has all the potential and the capacities to overcome these.
And with this summit set to hold quite soon, which individuals should be in attendance? Will you be expecting in attendance from civil society organizations and public and private sector companies?
So we're hoping for a mix of people at this conference. We believe as United Nations, together with the Sterling One Foundation, the ones organizing this and being our co-host, that the challenges we referred to earlier that need to be overcome require multi-stakeholder solutions. So one group of people we hope will be there are people with capital, venture capital, grant capital, investment capital. So that's one bit. We hope that captains of industry will be there, like indeed the managing director of the Sterling Bank itself. to help with some of the discussions on financing and what are good processes and projects and programs to invest into. We need high-level officials of the public sector there, so governors, for example, the governor of Lagos himself, but also from other parts of the country. We know that governments have a key responsibility at federal and at state level to provide the correct or the conducive circumstances, which includes providing services like education and health, but also providing a fertile ground for economic activity. We expect civil society leaders there, in particular national NGOs. They often provide critical services for vulnerable people. So a mix of people. We hope the media will be there in numbers, because the fourth estate, as you're often referred to, play a critical role also in communicating about the challenges and what the solutions are. In summary, the hope is that it will be an opportunity to make deals amongst these various stakeholders I've referred to.
Very good. Looks like there's a lot of expectations at this summit. But Mr. Schmale, it's one thing to convene summits, but what happens afterwards? What steps are being taken to guarantee policy decisions are implemented real time and impact the main beneficiaries of that summit itself?
Allow me to say that this is the second edition of the Africa Social Impact Summit. The first one happened last year in Abuja, where I am, and we've seen some progress since then. Allow me to give a concrete example. Our colleagues from the United Nations Development Programme have been working with government and indeed industry on a program called Jubilee Fellowship. This is about providing opportunities for young people to get work experience in businesses. And the Sterling Bank, for example, has since last year's summit offered a couple of hundred opportunities, I believe, for young people to gain this work experience and to become more qualified for working life. So we've seen some practical steps like that. What we're hoping so we've got some momentum. We hope that this second edition of the summit on August 10 and 11 in Lagos will add to that momentum. And of course, we are at the moment particularly concerned about the food insecurity in this country. We think it's a positive step that the president has in fact declared food insecurity a national emergency. And so we hope that the summit will give further momentum to both palliative measures, as we call it, so NGOs and others being able to balance the dramatic impacts of food insecurity, but also the fuel subsidy removals and other measures for the most vulnerable in society. So we hope that some momentum will be added to social work, to the social work arena. We hope that government will, through this summit, be further emboldened to take the necessary measures, as I mentioned at the big policy measures, as I mentioned at the beginning, where Nigeria can feed itself. I've been told many times that 60% of what is produced in Nigeria agriculturally, in food production terms, never reaches the market and consumers. So there's a lot to be done there, and government has to play a key role in mobilizing investment into infrastructure and creating a conducive environment where there is a closer communication and collaboration between many producers in the rural economy and the consumers, often in big cities.
Well, it's been great talking to you, and we wish you all the best for the conference that's being held on the 10th of October. Matthias Schmale, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon on Newsday.